Hello and welcome to another episode of My Favourite Game from the Honest Football Podcast.
This week, we're remarkably joined by professional footballer Chris Lyons, currently central midfielder for Northampton Town. He's had a glittering career in the EFL, over 450 EFL appearances for various Football League clubs, including Bristol Rovers, the team he supports, Sheffield Wednesday, MK Dons, Port Vale and now Northampton. He talks to us about playing in crucial games for his boyhood club and various experiences he's had throughout his career. He also talks about the favourite players and managers he's played under, as well as discussing his favourite game. And don't forget, if you'd like to be part of this favourite game series, just give us a message at Honest Football 3. Okay, I'm delighted to be joined by Chris now, and I'll start as I always do by going back to your first footballing memories as a child, whether it be as a fan or a player. What's the first moment of football you remember?
Oh, crikey. It's a weird one. I actually remember my first ever game as a kid, actually. I think I was probably about 6 or 7. Dad took me along to the game. Didn't really know what I was doing. I think they played me at centre half, and I just remember the ball coming to me, and it was. I must have come off the bench or sub, whatever. Come on, it just came to me, and it was rolling to me, and I just booted it as far as I could, and somehow it went miles. It went straight over the top of their defence to our striker, who then scored. So I think I made quite a good first impression, and from that day forward, then when I was a kid, they started playing me at the back, maybe because I could just kick the ball the furthest, I think. Oh,
fair enough. What about as a fan then, I guess? What were your first memories of going to a football match or even watching on TV growing up?
Similar, probably around that time. I think my dad probably would have took me to my first Bristol Rovers match. It was at an old stadium back then. We used to stand on the terraces. I think probably one of the earliest memories, I'm pretty sure they played Liverpool. It must have been a cup game back then. Not really remember much about the game. I just remember Liverpool playing at the stadium, and I can't remember the score or anything, but that was probably like the first kind of memory. And yeah, just carried on going since then, really.
Fair enough. And then I guess growing up, obviously you're a bit different to most of our guests, in which you've had a pretty illustrious career now, which we'll get to a bit later on. But yeah. I guess growing up, you had a career in youth football, and it's a bit unique to most players, I guess. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I just grew up basically playing for my local sides. My dad was a manager at the time, played probably from about 7 up until, I reckon it will probably be about 11 or 12, like when obviously you start. Because I was at Bristol City in between that as well, basically when I was a young lad. And then when you get to a certain age, they obviously make you pick between playing for the academy or playing for your local team. And obviously everyone's going to pick playing for the professional club. So around then it was, made a decision. And then I went to Bristol Rovers as a kid because obviously I was supporting them. And then I played pretty much up until I was about 15 with them, really. So it was... it was enjoyable because started playing a bit up front, scored a lot of goals. Always get the paper on a Monday morning and see the youth football section. Always have loads of articles in there. So it was enjoyable. It was obviously no pressure back then.
Yeah,
a lot of kids football now where you see the adults and stuff arguing on the sidelines, but it was it was nice back then. We had a good close knit group of families that took their kids, and it was enjoyable.
And then I guess moving a bit further forward, getting to the stage where you started to reach the professional level and the first team with Bristol Rovers, obviously being your boyhood club, what was it like making your debut in your early days there? Yeah,
it was crazy. I think probably maybe 2-3 weeks before my debut, I was actually stood on the terraces watching the game. So it was weird. Yeah, I think my first ever time I travelled with the first team was an away game, but then when it was, I think the first ever time I was on the bench at home, it was mad. Yeah, obviously going from the terraces to the pitch is what you don't really expect it to happen when you get to that sort of age, because when I was 15, 16, I got kind of released, and that was, then I was obviously thinking of something else, but then 18, 19 sort of got back involved with it all, and from, like I say, from the terraces to the pitch, it was mad. It took a lot of getting used to.
And then I guess you've been involved at probably quite a few EFL clubs now and been involved in multiple promotions in your career. What were the moments in your career, I guess, that stood out in terms of maybe just moments generally rather than specific games?
The promotions are always the best ones. I think my first kind of big moment was we got to the JPT final at the Millennium Stadium when the games were being played there. I came off the bench. I think there was about 65,000 there. That was just a massive kind of shock to me. I was still a young lad, just basically sitting on the bench most weeks.
Yeah.
And then a few weeks later, we played at Wembley and got promoted. So that was my first one. And just all the promotions they've all been pretty sort of dramatic ones for me so far. Sheffield Wednesday, we did it on the last day of the season.
Yeah.
At Hillsborough in front of the sellout. And then my next one was a conference playoff final at Wembley. We won on penalties.
Yeah.
And then my next one was the season after that. We scored in the 94th minute in the last game of the season and nicked into third place for an automatic playoff spot. So you can't really compare them. They're all just, the feeling at the time was great, and the following few weeks are always pretty enjoyable as well.
Yeah. And I guess moving on a bit now to this season with Northampton, a new club for you. Obviously, it's a bit tight at the top of League Two, tighter than it normally is. Only 3 points off the top three, but down in 9th place at the minute. Yeah. What's this season been like? Because you've got quite a few experienced players that have come in this summer. It's been a bit of a change of mentality at the club. What's it been like to be part of that?
Yeah, obviously there was, I think, a minimum of at least 10 signings in the summer, so it's always going to take a little while to get going. I always said, I think if you give us a couple of weeks to get sort of knowing each other, knowing the boys, how they play and stuff, and I think that's exactly what's happened. We sort of hit a nice hot spot for the last 2-3 months, and I quite like being in sort of just like 8th, 9th position. You're sort of just chilling outside the playoffs without really worrying about what teams above you are doing as such. I mean, if you're at the top, you're always looking over your shoulder, and at the minute we're just keeping in touch, and it's something that we did at Bristol. We sort of just right towards the end, we just made a massive challenge, and we got in the top 3.
And I guess looking at this stage of the season, I mean, we came to a game earlier in the season against Crewe, and I think yourself and Alan McCormack put on a masterclass in the centre of the midfield and won 4-1. You were 3-0 up after about 20 minutes. What's it like? I've got to ask as a Luton fan, what's it like playing with Alan McCormack? Because I was gutted to lose him this summer.
It's enjoyable because normally I'm playing against him and he's kicking me up in the air for whoever he's played for. So, it's good. Like, obviously, like I say, I think we've got over 500 games between us, so it's good experience, which is what you need in League Two. And yeah, he's a top lad. He's still sort of talking me through it now, so it's like having a little father figure out there. And yeah, like he's made a big difference to us. So I think he's struggling with an injury at the minute, so hopefully he'll be back sooner rather than later.
And then I guess finally on this season, you're obviously part of quite a big FA Cup run for Northampton at the moment, and you've got a brilliant cup tie under the lights on TV next week. Yep. What's it like as a footballer in the Football League when you get one of those big sides, be it Premier League or Championship, in the FA Cup?
Yeah, it's nice. I've not really had too many great cup runs, so it's quite nice to have a game at home, and obviously like it's gone on TV on BT, so under the lights, and it's kind of the little magic of the cup in it. We obviously caused an upset in the last round, so we've got to be confident. It's it's not gonna be easy for them coming to our place. We've got a great home record this year. We've outplayed a lot of teams at home, and we've got a style of play that suits us. So I think we're going with no pressure, and I think they'll be the ones that will come in, and they're going to have to be on top of their game to stop us.
Absolutely. And then I guess before we get on to your favourite game, which is obviously the title of the series, I just want to ask, because you're a pro footballer, for what would be the best player you would say you've played with in your career over a number of years? And again, the best player you played against possibly as well.
Best player I played with, probably Ross Barkley at Sheffield Wednesday. He came on loan from Everton when we were in the Champ, and you could see then he was just a different league, and obviously now he's gone on to play for England.
Yeah,
Chelsea week in week out. He was a different level, to be fair. In terms of playing against it, I always used to get asked this question, and I'd literally not played against any of the top players before, but luckily about 3 seasons ago we drew Chelsea in the FA Cup, not FA Cup, League Cup I think it was, and they put a strong team out. I played against Fabregas, and I think they had Hazard on the wing. So between one of them two, obviously I was coming in direct contact with Fabregas, so I'd probably say him.
And then I guess moving on to the title of the series, again, you'll probably be a little bit different in this regard because you've got probably experiences as a fan growing up and as a player as well.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I'll let you have two games. But what are your favourite footballing games and why, as a player and also as a fan?
As a player, any of the promotion games I was involved in have obviously been favourite games of mine, but the one at Wembley was a little bit special. I played the whole game, went to extra time, and then scored the first penalty. I had all my family watching. I think there was around 30,000 Bristol fans there that day. That was pretty special. So probably that one might just top it.
But I guess being a Bristol Rovers fan growing up as well and being on the terraces, that's got to mean something more in that promotion as well.
Yeah, no, it was massive. Yeah, obviously I went back to the club, took a bit of a gamble, dropping down 2 leagues to the conference, but it all worked out. It all worked out really well. And yeah, that was massive in front of all those supporters that day. And it was nice to be a big part of it and obviously contribute with a penalty that helped us.
And then I guess moving on as a fan, I guess you probably had a lot more experiences growing up than you get to as a pro. But what was your favourite game as a fan that you can remember?
It's tough on that. I think when I was a young lad, I remember going to Derby. Actually, it's funny. Actually, I think it was Bristol Rovers against Derby. It was in the FA Cup, and I remember going up with my old man and my uncle. I think we won. It was either 4-1 or 3-1.
Yeah.
It was at Pride Park. I think Rovers took about 8,000 fans up, and that's one I'll always remember. It was we beat them. I think it was 3-1 or 4-1. I think Nathan Ellington scored a hat trick. That's sort of one game that sticks in my memory more than I can probably remember when I was a kid. I'm sure there were some great games, but there's no way I'm remembering them.
I guess that's one of the things I remember for Bristol Rovers growing up was Nathan Ellington scoring basically every week on Soccer Saturday growing up.
Yeah,
I guess asking you as a fan, who was your favourite Bristol Rovers player growing up, I guess?
Yeah, there was him. There was Jamie Curtin, Jason Roberts. We had some good strikers over the years. Obviously, and then going back a bit further, there was like Ian Holloway and people like that. So they've always seemed to find a decent striker, and it's kind of carried on up until now, really. They've always had a decent striker who's always ended up moving on for good money. So, yeah, like Ellington, there was Barry Hells as well. He was always getting goals. I suppose Ian Holloway being a midfielder would probably be the choice, but that's similar. He's a bit of a cult hero down in Bristol anyway,
Yeah.
So a lot of Rovers fans would say him from back in the day.
So a couple of good choices for favourite games, but I guess my final question to you as a distinguished pro, it'd be rude of me not to ask. You've worked under a number of managers in your career. Yeah. Who's the favourite one you've worked with? And don't just say your current one for the sake of it, please.
No, he probably has. He's definitely in the top 3. The gaffer I'm working with now. But in the past, probably Darryl Clark, my manager at Bristol, was brilliant for various different reasons. He was kind of a mate as well as a manager, which was good. He helped me when I had a few tough times and stuff like that. But Gary Megson at Sheffield Wednesday, he was old school and he was a little bit scary, but he was funny. Some of the stories I could go on for days, but yeah, he was class. I've had some good ones. I've always got on with my managers, to be fair, but yeah, those 3 are probably the ones that stick out.
That's fantastic. I can't thank you enough for joining us on here and sharing your experiences with us. We do appreciate it. Chris is at Northampton, of course. Make sure you go down and check it out because they've been playing some quite entertaining stuff this year. And you'll get to see Alan McCormack alongside Chris in the middle, which is the perfect partnership in League 2. Thank you very much, Chris.
Nice one, mate.
That's it for this week's episode. I hope you very much enjoyed it. If you did and you're watching on YouTube, please like, share and subscribe for regular content from the Honest Football Podcast. Let us know in the comments what you thought of the favourite games. You can of course follow us on Spotify if you're listening there too. We'll have regular bonus interviews and content on that platform. And you can follow us over on Twitter at HonestFootball3. We'll have updates about upcoming episodes and interviews. But for now, a massive thanks for watching again, and we'll see you next time.